Hi and welcome back to part 4 of my new workshop. You'll probably see since the last video we've had a new garage door fitted, but there's a whole load more than that, so let me take you inside and show you what else I've been doing. So the new garage door has just been delivered and I can't wait to see the back of this old one. The old one was probably good back in its day, but it's heavy, it's awkward, it doesn't close properly, and has a great big gap all the way around, as you can see. I can't wait to see the back of it. So the new one's arrived. The following day the guys arrived to fit the new one. I can't believe how quick they fitted it. They were gone by lunchtime. They take the old one out, they cut it into pieces. The new one's really quite heavy. It's like a 2-stroke 3-man lift. They have to put it on, well, they put it on gearbox stands, believe it or not, to get it up in place. But the first thing they can do, as you can see, is they cut the old one up and take it away and dispose of it. And then they set to work and start to install the new one. Now these are the stands that they use. I think they're gearbox stands. That helps them position the garage door in place. That's it in place. It has a cover that goes over the top of the mechanism. That's the new fuse board that's since been installed, and that's the wiring mechanism for the garage door below. And there we go. This is the before, and there's the after. You can't believe how quick they install these. I think it's just under 4 hours to fit a new double garage door, and no ordinary garage door, a real heavy duty garage door. You can see that by the size of the runners either side and the thickness of the shutter itself. It's all insulated. It's really good. I'm really impressed with it. Now, this is the actual speed of the garage door. I haven't sped it up and I haven't slowed it down. For me, it's the perfect speed for a garage door. Now, a little bit about the garage door. We bought it from a company called Gorola. This is now top of the range. I believe it's called the Titan XL, and we're really impressed with it. What I'm also impressed with these parts here, these were from the old garage door, and I just assumed that the guys would take them away and dispose of them. But they said to me, no, they're yours, keep them. They sell second hand and they sell quite easily. They were absolutely spot on. I sold them the following day for £80. Now, that's really honest of the guys to recommend that. Now, what I forgot to mention, but you've probably all noticed, we now have proper lighting in the garage. The electrician has been round and has finally finished off all the electrics. I have a switch with 2 switches. The switch on the left will switch on the lights on the left. The one on the right will switch on the one on the right. That means I don't have to have all the lights on at the same time. I'm really pleased with these LEDs. They've turned out really good. So it was then on to the next job. Now the next job wasn't in the workshop, it was on the outside, and you're probably wondering why all the sand and cement. Well, this greenhouse that's on the other side of the workshop has always been really damp. It's like a mud bath. It just sits on soil, as you can see. And this seems to trap all the moisture. So this outside wall is always wringing wet. The greenhouse was not in great condition anyway, so me and my wife decided to take it down and have a concrete base laid instead. Now, I was going to lay the base myself, but we got a quote and we were surprised at how reasonable it was. I thought by the time I buy the sand and cement and hire a mixer, it's just not worth it, and this guy does these all day long. At the same time, we also had a company come in and run a new oil line, because the old one sat below that soil, would you believe? So as you can see, pinned to the side of the wall is the new oil line for our central heating. Now, we all know one job leads to another, and with the greenhouse out of the way and the new base, the wall looked really dirty, so I decided to give it a couple of coats of emulsion. I also had to put a windowsill on the bottom of this window and a drip rail at the top. The window had been fitted by the previous person, or the previous owner, without. That didn't help the dampness. Now, I didn't record that, but trust me, it has been fitted. So, yeah, 2 coats of emulsion, new windowsill, and a new drip rail at the top. And with that all done, it was time to get back into the workshop. Now, you may remember in an earlier video, when I cut these window openings out, I cut them out very roughly with a jigsaw. So I'm now finishing those off. I'm going round the edges with a router, with a flush trim bit. I'm just working my way around the outer edge. I'm now cutting out the corners using my flush trim saw yet again. The router, as you know, doesn't go right into the corners. I then take a piece of sandpaper, a piece of 120 grit, and just take off all the rough edges all the way around the edge of the window frame. Then it was a case of boarding the recesses. This is the same OSB. These are the offcuts that I kept from when I boarded the walls. I pre-cut these to size, case of sliding them into position, and a few screws just to hold it in place. I say a few screws, it was actually 10. I always seem to overdo it with the screws. I evenly spaced them as well, measured out and put 2 side by side. This is the top piece. I thought it was a bit easier to drill while it was on the bench and put the screws in. It's always much easier that way. I then cut down my side pieces using more offcuts of OSB. You can probably see in this picture, it's getting rather congested in the workshop now. There really isn't much room to move at all at the moment, but hopefully that will all be sorted out soon. So exactly the same process on the sides. Pre-drilled the holes, put the screws in ready to go. All I had to do is put it into place, put the screws in. Don't ask me why, I've done another 10 screws. That's 40 screws on this window recess, a bit over the top. I then decided to finish the whole thing off with a nice piece of battening all the way around the outside. This is, I think it's 10mm by 30mm. I mitered the corners, and as you can see, just tacked it with a little bit of wood glue and a couple of panel pins just to hold it in place. I think it really finishes it off. Now, some might say I didn't really need to do this, but it's like all these things really, it's the finishing touches that make a project. I then used a hole punch to punch all the little panel pins in, and then went round with a tiny little bit of wood filler. And then gave the whole thing a very light sanding. And I think that just about finishes that off. Next, it was time to start getting organised and to start filling up these shelves and start putting some racks on the wall. But the first job was to start getting a little bit organised and store some stuff away. Now, a lot of this stuff had been in storage since we'd moved a year ago, but I had nowhere to put it. But now, with the benches in place, I can finally start to, as I say, get organised. And next came my tool racks. Now I've been looking forward to doing this. I know that sounds silly, but I've got tools all over the place at the moment, in boxes and, well, basically everywhere. Now you may remember these came from the old workshop where we used to live. So I simply took them off the wall. They're on 18mm ply, and now I'm going to fix them in place. But decisions. How high and where do they go? Is that too high? I think it is. Which means I am going to have to cut one of these boards down to fit between my metal clad sockets, but that's no hardship. So we'll just have a little measure up. So next I cut the end section off using my circular saw. I really do need to invest in a track saw. I see so many people using them and they look really, really good. I think it's going to be one of my next purchases. You see what I mean? This is why I need a track saw. So much messing around with clamps. Now the perfect height for these tool racks did seem to be offcuts of 4x2, and that's a coincidence because I've got lots of those, so that worked out really well. So I made sure it was level and started to fix to the wall. Now the beauty of this is you can screw straight into OSB and get a good fixing, but I've marked where the studs are, so I'm screwing straight into the studs and getting a very, very strong fixing indeed. Now, I was going to cut this next bit of video, but I decided to leave it in because this demonstrates what can and what does happen. Board falls over along with my circular saw, that lands on the floor. Fortunately, the circular saw survived. It still cuts nice and true, no problems with it at all. So I decided to get that board fixed to the wall as quickly as possible. I didn't want that coming down again. I then removed the blocks and checked for level one more time across both boards. Next came the shelving. Now I'm using traditional twin slot. Twin slot's been around for years. It's basically you put the uprights in and all the way up the upright is twin slots, hence the name. And then your brackets just clip into them and lock into place. And then once you've got the shelves on top of them, they're nice and secure, as you'll see in a second. Now I'm having to use a laser on this far left one. That's because I don't have the tool rack as a reference point. So with all the uprights in place, I can now fix the brackets onto the uprights. And as you can see, they're on, and I've put some temporary shelves up for now, just to make sure it's all nice and straight, which it appears to be. Now I'm sorry it jumps about a bit here, but I've basically run out of shelving brackets, so I've had to find another job to do. So I've moved over to this window. It's the same process as the other window that I've done. This one's slightly different in the fact that it's going to have a windowsill. So I've cut a windowsill down to size, and I'm going to fix it in with some grip adhesive. So I'm checking for level, not just left to right, but back to front. There's nothing worse when you look at a window ledge and it's leaning back or leaning forward. I know it's only a workshop, but you know, if it can be perfect, then why not? The grip adhesive will hold it in place, but I'm going to wedge it so there's no movement. Once I put the wedges in, I then check for level again, put a wedge the other side, and exactly the same once the wedge is in. The sill may have moved slightly, so just check it yet again with the little spirit level, and I'm going to put one in the middle just for good measure. So, as I say, with no shelving brackets to put up, and the window sill now fitted, and the side of the windows, the recess is boxed in, I thought I'd better move on to something else. So I decided I would fit my wood turning chisel rack to the wall. It was a little bit too large, so I had to cut it down slightly, as you can see. Didn't have to take a lot off, I think it was only about an inch. And then just simply fix it to the wall. Or at least I thought that was what I was going to do. And as you'll see in a second, as soon as I took it over to the wall, I realised I had a plug socket in the way. So, bit of a dilemma. Do I cut out where the plug socket is, or do I remove the backing from the chisel rack and just fit the chisel rack around the plug socket? You'll see, I went for the easy option. And while I was at it, I decided to put up my old drill holder and charging station. That day was one of those days where I was going to do lots of odd little jobs, as you can see, like rearranging my tool racks and my screwdrivers. It was really good to finally start getting organised and to get some of my tools out of storage that I haven't seen for at least a year, where they've just sat in a storage unit. Sounds crazy, but really, really good to start getting a little bit organised. Now, on that day, I was really in the zone, as they say, and I decided while I was getting organised, I might as well start putting all my levels on the wall. I mounted a piece of ply which I'd taken from the old workshop, which holds my T-square, and as you'll see in a second, it holds all of my spirit levels as well. Plus, of course, my squares and tape measures and other bits and pieces. Now, you're probably wondering what I'm doing. I'm fixing some hooks to the ceiling. Reason being is I'm going to fit my air filter to the ceiling. Again, I forgot I had this. This was also in storage. It's held to the ceiling using 4 hooks, which fixes into 4 hooks on the top of the air filter, which you'll see shortly. I was doing these by hand, and then I realised there's an old trick for putting hooks in, which saves your fingers. You basically put another hook into the chuck of your drill and turn your drill, and that does your hooks up, as you're just about to see. Now, this isn't actual speed, I've sped this up, but as you can see, it really saves your fingers when it starts to get tight. I then lift the air filter into position on 2 of the hooks anyway, and then I offer it up and make a little mark where the other 2 hooks are going to go. Same process, I drill 2 holes. I then put the hooks in by hand and finish them off using the method I just showed you with the drill. So as you can see, I start off getting them in hand tight, and then take the spare hook, fix that into the chuck of my drill, make sure it's nice and tight, and then just pull the trigger, and that does the work for you. And this is at actual speed. Now, the hooks that are fitted to the air filter themselves are adjustable. This is so you can get it level. So if your ceiling's not level, you can turn them clockwise or anti-clockwise, then turn the locking nut and get them into position so they're nice and level. Now, this was fun and games and much easier said than done, trying to get 4 hooks on at the same time onto another 4 hooks is quite challenging, but got there eventually. Now, there is no way that I can leave that plug socket the way it is. That may seem crazy, but when I plug the plug in, the lead will be the wrong way round. So I've simply got to turn that around, just like that. And as you can see, that is much better. So I'm now back on shelving. I've just been to the store and bought some 2.4 metre lengths of tongue and groove floorboards. I'm going to take the tongue off of one piece, so when I join it, that will be the front edge of my shelf. So the new brackets have arrived and the new uprights, so I'm quickly fixing those to the wall. These ones are slightly shorter, they don't need to be as tall. And then it's a case of fitting the shelf in. I've had to join this, as you can see, because it's quite a long length, and it's just a case of putting it into position. And yet again, the laser has come in really useful. And then fix my shelves in place with a couple of screws into each bracket. Now the brackets have a tendency to move from left to right, so I'm just offering a square up to them to make sure they sit square to the back of the wall, if that makes sense. I then had the pleasure of filling the empty shelves with all the stuff that's sat in storage for the last year or so, plus all these tins of paint and so on. Yep, time to start filling those shelves, starting off with all my storage jars full of nails, tacks, screws, you name it, everything. I even take the time to clean the lids from the dust from the previous workshop. Now, I've spared you the boredom of watching me stack shelves. In a second, you will see that the shelves are completely full, and I'm now moving on to start putting more tools on the wall, starting off with my spanners and ratchets and so on. Next, where do I fit my Bosch drill press? Now, I love this drill press. This is really, really good. I'll go into more detail about that on another video. But is that the right position? I'm not sure. Maybe there? Yeah, I think that's the position. So, once the drill press was in position, it was a case of bolting it down. 4 bolts in total, coach bolts, 2 at the front, 2 at the back. I put the 2 at the front in, and then noticed they were starting to protrude along the bottom of the bench underneath. So, undone them, quickly moved it back, literally about 5mm from memory, put the other 2 bolts in, and that was it. All that was left to do was to tidy up the cable at the back with a couple of cable ties. Now I wanted the shelves to continue onto the next wall, lots of stuff to put on shelves. So this is only a small little shelf, but it continues round, it's the same height as the other one on the right. And I'm going to put a shelf above the window, which you can see I've already got up there, but I haven't got enough brackets yet, and I need to turn the shelf around and cut off the tongue from the tongue and groove. But I'll move on to that in a second. So the new shelving brackets arrived. I fitted the top shelf above the window, and it was the perfect height for storing 2.5 litre tins of paint, which I've got plenty of. Shelf underneath will take my sanding racks, and I'm sure I'll fill it up with other bits and pieces. So that's the shelves almost done and almost full. Next it was time to start unpacking all my wood turning chisels and accessories. All of my wood turning tools are from Robert Sorby. That's from my chisels right the way up to my sharpening system, which is the Pro Edge, which I'll show you later on in the video. Another tool that I was also glad to see come out of storage was my Triton sander. Now this doubles up as like a belt sander and a spindle sander. Really good piece of kit actually. Then came my other dust extractor, which is my Camvac. Now this is the smaller one, this is the smaller single motor. I've also got the larger double motor. Both very, very good. As I say, this is the smaller one. I think this is a 36 litre single motor, and I think the larger one's a 55 litre double motor from memory. And that tucks in really nicely just on the floor behind my bandsaw. Now this was really lucky. I was at our local DIY store and they was reducing a load of softwood while I was there. So I took the opportunity to buy some, knowing I needed some architrave to go around the garage door. So I decided to crack on with that job straight away. I start off by cutting the 45-degree angles. I then use the offcut to check that it is a true 90-degree angle, which it should be. Once I know it is a true 90 degrees, I then whip a piece off the bottom. So I put the saw back to its original position and just take a section off at the bottom. I do it this way because I start off by making it slightly longer, and I just keep taking a little bit off at a time until I know it fits perfectly. And that is slightly too long. So it's back to the table saw and literally move a couple more millimeters. And that is spot on. So I'll fix it to the wall using some oval nails. I think they're 40mm from memory. I then cut the top section and fix that in place, exactly the same with some 40mm ovals. It was then just a case of doing exactly the same on the right hand side. And another little finishing touch that I didn't bother videoing was just to put a little bit of a frame around the loft hatch. It just finishes it off. So, with the workshop almost finished, I could carry on getting out the rest of my tools. Lots of these tools, as I've mentioned, have been in storage for a long, long time. This is my Robert Sorby Pro Edge. It's like my sharpening station for my wood turning chisels. I want to get that bolted down and in place. Also wanted to get my lathe in place and start to get a bit of a corner or section set up ready for wood turning. Okay, so that's it. We're now almost at the end of part 4. I now just want to give you a bit of a walk around, a bit of a summary, and show you exactly where I'm at. Okay, so starting from the garage door, which is also brand new, one of the first things I've done. I will do a full workshop tour, but this is a quick guide and a summary of what's been done. So, French cleat wall, that will be a completely separate video. Benches from the old workshop, now all in place. All my tools on shelves, on racks, where they should be. The American fridge freezer, as I've mentioned, I can't bring myself to get rid of that. We have one indoors as well, but this is quite handy to have another one outside at busy times when you need extra storage. My bike is now mounted on the wall. Why I didn't think of that before, I do not know. The new garage door, which you've just seen. My bench, which I can move around, which is on casters. Both my Camvacs are now out, the large one and the smaller one. Bandsaw is in position, not sure that's going to be the final position, because in order to use it on something large, I do have to have the garage door open, so I'll probably end up moving that. Planer thicknesser is on wheels, because that can be wherever I want it to be. The Triton sander, that's now all set up with dust extraction as well, along with the bandsaw. That's why I'm not sure about what to do with the bandsaw at this stage. And all my clamps are all on the wall, timber rack, miter saw station. I've moved this around on a couple of occasions, but this does seem to be the best position. I was a little bit unsure because it does block a little bit of light from the window, but it's minimal and I can live with that. all of my levels, measuring devices, they're now all on the wall. One thing I do need to do in order to finish this is the floor. When I first started this video, one of the first things that I'd done was I painted one side of the garage floor, and then I moved everything over. I've used this before and it's pretty good stuff, but it has had a real beating, and as you can see, it's started to lift. It has only had one coat, so probably needs 2 or 3. I've got to do the other side. Whether I'll use the same stuff again, I don't know. I might try and use something a little bit more robust. But that's pretty much it for now. That's pretty much my workshop, and as I've said, I will do a proper workshop tour where I show you all of my tools, how I use them, and so on and so on and so on. But that's pretty much it for now. Thanks for watching, guys.